And we're halfway through, doing well on time. So our next speaker is Khanya Mthethwa, joining us from South Africa. Khanya is here in person, but she's actually sharing a video of her recording. South Africa does rolling blackouts called load shedding. And there's always a chance that something like that might happen. So she wanted to make sure that her presentation was not interrupted at all. So she is here with us, but you will be seeing a recording. So Khanya is an award-winning jewelry designer that was born in Kwa-Zulu Natal, currently working as an academic at the University of Johannesburg. Some of her prominent accomplishments within academia include a Master's of Arts in the field of design, rough diamond evaluation and diamond cutting certificates, and rough diamond and diamond evaluation cutting certificates as well. At the present moment, she's also a PhD candidate at the University of Johannesburg in the Department of Visual Arts, majoring in art history. When she's not immersed in her studies and lecturing, she takes on the role of founder and CEO of Changing Facets, a company that specializes in contemporary wearable art jewelry that draws inspiration from indigenous cultures within the African continent. Khanya's jewelry is a fusion of indigenous cultures and personal identity, intertwining wisdom with design. It's an homage to the unique sense of place that enriches her creative process. And the jewelry captures the dialogue between cultures, embodying diverse identities shaped by the power of places, both physical and conceptual. Khanya also is a recent awardee of a very significant award from Art Jewelry Forum. So congratulations to her. There are not that many awards in our field, so that's a huge honor. We're so happy that you're here with us.
Thank you. Greetings to everyone, and thank you for everyone for joining and actually taking your time to listen in on what we have to share. And I'd like to especially thank Shane and your team for putting the symposium together, and it's quite an honor to share the space with you. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I get it right.
Greetings, esteemed colleagues and fellow jewelry enthusiasts. I am honored to be here with you today to explore the world of jewelry and its profound connection to my personal concept of place. As an artist from South Africa, I will provide insight into how jewelry has played a pivotal role in shaping my perception of place, be it geographical, cultural, or emotional. To begin this lecture, I extend my warm greeting with the word Sanbonani, meaning hello, which can be directly translated as we see you. In doing so, I greet you not only as Khanya Mthethwa, but also as an individual who invokes the spirits of those who walked before me, making my presence in this current space possible. I introduce myself with my honorific clan names such as Dingswayo, Nyambose, Makako Ntsibanziba, Mvolozi Emnyama Inketha Baweli nabayiwelayo bayiqokelela. Nina bakantamba kancilani ngoba ngicela lutho lomuntu. Wena okalugagane oluhlaba ngaphi ngoba phela lumhlaba ngale. Thulisa kuyozwakala. Nkonyana yenkosi, hlangalezwe. In addition, others, each with its own rich significance. These clan names, known as Izithakazelo, are a significant part of our cultural heritage. As Mkhunu points out, Izithakazelo are constituted by clan names and personal praises, which bring about an interplay between individual and collective history within our community. They actively recite the remembered past of patriarchal heads through generations and encode the historical agencies of specific identities. In pre-colonial societies, surnames to which clan names and personal praises belong serve to provide a balanced perspectives about individuals or collective identities, whether from the rank and file or from the higher echelons of society. This genre of oral tradition highlights the rich tapestry of our history and culture, reflecting the interwoven threads of our heritage. Returning to our main theme, this lecture will demonstrate how the concept of place is intricately tied to the history and culture of a community. Through the lens of jewelry design, I will illustrate how traditional symbols and motifs can be thoughtfully incorporated into modern creations, bridging the gap between the past and the present. Before delving into this creative journey, it is essential to provide some context. The Mthethwa people, to whom I belong, form a part of the larger Northern Nguni grouping in Kwa-Zulu Natal. This historical context is significant because the Mthethwa people played a pivotal role in shaping the region's history and culture. They absorbed numerous other chiefdoms and had a profound influence on the emergence of the Zulu nation, particularly through their association with Shaka Zulu, a legendary figure in the records of African history. The Zulu language, of which there are variations, is part of the Nguni language group. The word Zulu means sky, and according to oral history, Zulu was the name of the ancestor who founded the Zulu royal line in about 1670. Part of the history of the Zulu and other indigenous groups in South Africa includes them having jewelry making and metal smithing skills. However, the production of metal in local communities declined significantly with the arrival of European colonizers. The Portuguese, who were obsessed with gaining control of the local gold production, caused a decline in metal production on the East Coast at the beginning of the 16th century AD. In the 18th and 19th century AD, imported iron goods rapidly undermined the value of traditional produced goods like iron hoes, which were formerly an important currency in Natal and the Eastern Transvaal. At the Cape of Good Hope, the Dutch bartered copper and brass for cattle, and Dutch brass buttons were dismantled and used for making jewelry items that were traded north as far as the Western Transvaal. Although imported European metals assumed increasing economic importance during the past 4 centuries, indigenous technology was still employed for reworking these materials. In some parts of Southern Africa, traditional techniques were still employed for producing items of jewelry. This history shows how the arrival of Europeans and the introduction of new materials impacted the traditional skills and economy of the indigenous people of South Africa, and how the concept of place is tied to the history and culture of a community. Moving forward, let us consider space as always changing. As I continue, you will see a conversation between my creativity and the history I uncover. Space becomes like a canvas where the past, present, and future come together in a creative way. To illuminate this further, let us turn to the words of Ngungiwa Thiong'o, who underscores the profound impacts of colonial and neo-colonial stages of imperialism on our perception and positioning within our environment. His argument emphasizes the need to understand the importance of the correct perspective in our struggle against imperialism by acknowledging the effects and implications it has had on how we perceive ourselves and our place in the universe. This discussion highlights the significance of navigating contemporary spaces while embracing indigenous influences that shape our worldview and our roles as inhabitants of this world. Now let us delve into how this perspective applies practically. Through this lecture, I will exemplify designs inspired by the indigenous people of Kwa-Zulu Natal, showcasing that Zulu culture possesses a rich history and potential future of body adornments that remain rooted in their heritage and are not entirely reliant on Western influences. To understand the significance of this approach, it is crucial to explore the concept of Singabantu Bendawo. In her work, Singabantu Bendawo, Understanding the Concept of Land from the Perspective of Ubuntu, Nompumelelo Zodwa Radebe delves into this phrase and its profound meaning within the context of the people of Esihlengeni in South Africa. To grasp this concept fully, we must first comprehend the terms Umuntu and Wendawo. Umuntu embodies the ontology and epistemology of Ubuntu, extending beyond humanism, while Abantu refer to people with diverse worldviews influenced by the biophysical environment they inhabit. Abantu Bendawo, then, are those who have earned trust and proven themselves capable of various tasks and responsibilities. This notion of Singabantu Bendawo reflects an African worldview in which land is not viewed as a mere commodity, but rather a living entity that imposes responsibilities on its occupants. The philosophy of Ubuntu places the well-being of people at the forefront of all considerations, fostering a human-centered way of life. Even seemingly vacant land is believed to be occupied by spirits, and when people choose to inhabit it, they do so in alignment with the principles of Ubuntu inscribed in the land's demands. I now move to the practical expression of these ideas through jewelry design. Having delved into the profound philosophies that underpin my approach, let us now embark on a practical journey that translates these ideas into tangible expressions through jewelry design. As a designer, my creative process is informed by a set of principles and concepts that draw deep inspiration from the philosophies we have explored. These principles serve as the guiding light in my work, allowing me to create jewelry designs that encapsulates the essence of specific places and communities while respecting their cultural and spiritual significance. The first is Singabantu Bendawo, which refers to people who can be trusted with any task or responsibilities because they have proven themselves accordingly. I consider this concept when creating designs that are specific to a particular place or community. The second is Ubuntu, which is a quality that extends beyond humanism and is embodied by a person to be considered Umuntu. I consider this concept when creating designs that prioritize the well-being of people and promote a human-centered life. The third is the biophysical environment, which is the physical environment that contributes to the worldview of a people. I consider this concept when creating designs that are specific to a particular place or community and take into account the biophysical environment that shapes the worldview of the people who occupy it. The fourth is figure relationships, which is a visual technique that I use to create meaning with the space surrounding a design. I play with reducing or confusing positive and negative spaces to create ambiguity and tension, which can increase the interest of a composition to the viewer. Finally, consistency is essential in making a design easier to read and understand. I use a specific color palette, design aesthetic throughout my design to create a cohesive and consistent look. I center my work on indigenous material culture. Material culture speaks to individual and societal identities. However, the lack of documentation about individual makers and owners and conventional museum practices like rigid tribal or ethnic classifications has limited our understanding of the nuances in this public and personal continuum. In response, my work explores indigenous cultures, avoiding strict ethnic categorizations, and seeks to capture the subtle complexities of each culture I focus on, allowing for a more authentic representation of their material culture. In some of my designs, I include a shield motif that is commonly seen in Zulu beadwork. This specific motif, known for its presence in the Nongoma region of KZN, represents one of the beadwork designs associated with Nongoma, which may have gained more significance due to shifts in Zulu cultural movements. The roots of the shield motif within Nongoma's beadwork can be traced back to a deliberate effort by the Zulu community to elevate Shaka Zulu's role in South African history and foster a sense of ethnic pride and unity among Zulu people. Shields hold great significance in Zulu culture, as they were tools of protection in battle, making them powerful symbols of Zulu identity. These shields are crafted from cow hides, animals that hold profound importance in the social and religious customs of isiZulu speakers. Even today, cow hides retain symbolic value as indicators of wealth, as noted by Carol Barham-Hayes. This historical journey underscores how the notion of place is intricately woven into the history and culture of a community. It also highlights how traditional symbols and motifs can find their place in contemporary designs, bridging the gap between the past and the present. The collection of the work entitled Umswengo, I embarked on an exploration of technology that aimed to bridge the gap between the capabilities of handmade craftsmanship and the possibilities offered by modern technology, such as 3D printing. I investigated how I can explore technology not as a symbol of progress, but making use of the etymology of the word. I was trying to bridge the gap between what handmade can do and what technology would allow me to do. I paid homage to indigenous adornments and explored how technology can reimagine and transform them, creating multiple layered pasts. I combined aspects of the digital with rediscovered history to demonstrate how Zulu crafts and adornments transmute in every cultural context and generation. Umswenko, this consisted of statement pieces. One of the pieces was handmade with the design inspiration being the shield motif found in Zulu beadwork. I designed a pattern using the motif. After making the pattern, a weaving technique using fine silver was used to manufacture the piece. The beads were 3D printed and were a reimagined approach to the beads. Another piece was made out of string that was also woven to simulate the shield motif, and the choker part of the piece was from the 3D printed beads. Once the pieces were made, I wore the jewelry and had still photos in black and white taken of me. The images being in black and white created a stronger tonal contrast to show the detail of the jewelry. I used tonal values in the background of the image, in the body, and in the jewelry. The jewelry in a light tonal value is foregrounded in the image. The focus was less on the face and the head and more on the chest area. In the collection, Echoes of the Past, I deliberately reclaimed the narrative of Abantu by using bold poses on plinths to confront the shadows of colonialism. I wear modern interpretations of traditional Zulu bridal attire in each pose, and each of these poses carries intentional significance, a symbol of reclamation. My focus centers on the female figure, recognizing the vital role she plays within the home and community. In the Zulu culture, when a woman is to be married off, her future husband honors and expresses gratitude to her family for raising a woman who will become the cornerstone of a new generation, carrying the family legacy forward. This gratitude is often demonstrated by the giving of cattle to her family. According to Berglund, cattle hold a special significance as they are considered the property of the ancestors and serve as a primary medium for communication with the ancestors in indigenous rituals. Cattle sacrifices are used to invoke the presence and blessings of the ancestors during important occasions like weddings, as well as to seek their assistance during significant ceremonies, such as the coming of age celebrations and weddings as described by Barham Haynes. In light of this historical narrative, my artistic focus revolves around the female figure and cow skulls as I seek to honor and reinterpret the traditions and cultural significance attached to these symbols. In conclusion, jewelry serves as a powerful medium through which I navigate the complexities of place, space, time, and cultural identity. My South African heritage, steeped in rich history and indigenous traditions, finds resonance in my artistic endeavors, allowing us to witness the profound connection between place and creativity. As we delve deeper into my work, we gain a heightened appreciation for how jewelry can encapsulate the essence of place and culture, forging a bridge between the past, present, and future. In closing, my journey as an artist and designer is a testament to the enduring bond between culture and place. It is a reminder that our roots shape our creativity, and our creativity, in turn, celebrates our heritage. Before we conclude today, I'd like to share a video with you, a vibrant display of Zulu pride and the essence of place. In this video, Zulu men partake in a traditional dance as part of an event that brings together diverse groups from across Kwa-Zulu Natal, fostering a sense of unity and pride rooted in their unique cultures and ancestral lands. It's a magnificent testament to how the spirit of place continues to thrive, evolve, and inspire. Enjoy the video, and thank you for joining me on this journey of creativity and connection.
That was incredible, Khanya, like the skill there and the practice. I was imagining, like, that's
Thank you.
phenomenal. Also makes me think about like celebration and like the site of celebration, how that kind of plays into place. I mean, that looked like a soccer field or something, it didn't look
Yeah.
like anything, but after it began, I wasn't paying attention to the place, I was paying attention to the bodies. Yeah, as Jean-Marie said, so much joy. So I am curious about in your teaching, how, and this might be, just something different for you, but I know that often like instructors I've had or I know of are kind of like when they bring their practice to their students, they're talking about what inspires them. And I'm wondering if you find that your students are compelled by the idea of site or place in their work, or what you're finding that those young students are really compelled by who are under your tutelage.
Sorry, my video is playing in the background, so I'm distracted between what you're saying and what's happening. It's playing again. I'm not sure if you guys are hearing the same thing. Is it full screen?
You're just hearing you.
So. Oh, just hearing me. Okay, let me just pause it so I can focus. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry, please repeat that.
Yeah, so I'm curious how, when you're coming to your students and they know about your work, if you're finding that they are compelled by the idea of exploring place in their own work, or even heritage. Like, what are you finding that your students are compelled by conceptually?
I find that they are compelled to, to figure out, like they are interested in heritage. And because we're such a diverse country where it's not just like one culture, there's always that conversation between being in a contemporary space where, there's that influence of different cultures, but also at the same time trying to find who you are in the place, like in the space that you're in, as well as being a person. Sorry, I'm so nervous. As well as someone who has lost a lot of like cultural practices and understanding of their own identity. So there's a lot of grappling with sense of self, as well as sense of belonging, because of all of these influences from being in a space where we have been colonized and our identities have shifted, not organically in the way that we other people would, it's just a progression, but it has shifted because of politics and the history. So students are interested in finding out about themselves, and we find that even in our curriculum, we do have projects that are centered around students using design to, find out more about themselves. And you do find projects where students feel like they are connecting a bit more to their heritage, because now they go home and they ask their parents and they ask their grandparents about a little bit more about themselves, as opposed to just not really being interested before. So yeah, that does happen a lot, if that makes sense.
I was also curious, it's not something we talked about when we met, how you came to jewelry.
So my journey to jewelry was after my matric, after high school. I had a conversation with my dad, and he wanted to know what I was interested in. Well, before I finished my matric, we had the conversation, and I initially was interested in gems. And then he said to me, "Okay, if you're interested in gems, then it can't be geology, because I thought geology and gems were the same thing." And then he said, "You are looking more for maybe diamond cutting." And I said, "Well, that sounds interesting." So then he found a contact, which was in Johannesburg. So I moved from KZN to Johannesburg to do my diamond cutting course at the Harry Oppenheimer diamond training school. And then I worked as a diamond cutter, but I got bored because it was just putting on facets and, a different size stone, but it's the same thing. And then when I searched for UJ, I found that they had jewelry design and they had gemology as one of the modules. So that's how my journey with jewelry began. So I came into the department, and yeah, the rest was history afterwards.
I love that. So Jean-Marie says, I love this reinterpretation of traditional crafts using contemporary technology. And I really love that in these photographs, you were the one to wear them. Can you share a little bit about how it feels or how it felt to wear your own pieces and to assume these intentional poses? Are there any ways you prepare yourself for these photographs as you tap into your ancestors while also being a future ancestor yourself?
That's a lovely question. Well, my preparation for work, especially when I'm going to do like shoots, is always, it's a mental process. Even when I am in the process of designing, it's not something that it's never quick, and it's always me questioning a lot of things, going back and forth with research, and really trying to be sensitive about how I represent and communicate my ideas, because I think even though I am Zulu, I also don't want to, be in that position where I essentialize my own people. So in that, it's more than just, oh no, I'm designing, but it's immersing myself, mentally, emotionally, and just like preparing for that. And it's very meditative for me. Like I do meditations and all of that's part of my daily routine. But I prepare in that way. And when I do take the photos as well, it feels good. I'm a very shy person. So, but when I do stand in front of the camera, it's a different thing altogether for me, because now it's more than just, then I'm in a moment, and I'm trying to capture the moment as best as I possibly can. So it's almost like I fall into that trance of knowing now I'm trying to communicate and send out a message through my work. And so it's a beautiful experience.
Thank you. One more question. Carrie Ann says, I'm interested in your ideal wearer or ideal audience. Where or on what bodies do you feel your work belongs? I'm thinking about the sensitization of who is allowed to place the objects of other cultures on their own bodies, and how that plays into, complicates, or even continues the legacy of colonialism. I think this is a really excellent question. Yeah, who gets to wear the jewelry that is made by people who were not valued or are not valued. And also, Carrie said, I love your work and your thought process is stunning. So yeah, what do you have to say to that? I know that's a big concept.
Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to placement of the pieces, it can be really anywhere in the body. It's depending on where it sits and how it makes the person feel. And when it comes to who can wear it, I honestly believe anybody can wear it. And that's because of what I've done as a designer in terms of making sure that there's always context and, teaching people more about who I am or what the culture is that I'm presenting. So I feel that in that, it's not just a matter of me replicating or repeating the patterns, because now I'm unlearning. I'm helping people unlearn as well as relearn. So I feel like anybody can wear it, because the messaging behind the pieces is deliberate in a way that it makes sure to showcase the cultures in a light that is acceptable, and that someone else can say, I'm wearing this piece, and I'm wearing this piece because, I feel a certain way about it. It's going to either make someone reflect, it's either going to make like on their own behaviors or things that they weren't aware of in terms of how they look at different cultures. And it doesn't have to be only indigenous, but just like in general, it's just an awakening of sorts, and thinking about the cultures in a different way that sometimes we can fall into a trap of thinking of them. So I feel like anybody can do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and not everyone might answer that way, right? I think Carrie's bringing up a really good point. Mary Ravel says, thank you for showing the handmade version and the 3D printed version of the shield pattern side by side. The handmade version appeared more complex and therefore more interesting, which I wouldn't necessarily have expected. And I lied. One more question. I feel like status is sort of inherently present when talking about jewelry. Can you talk a little bit about if and how you think about status when centering colonized identities and landscapes in your work?
Let me think about that properly. Please rephrase the question.
Yep. Can you talk a little bit about how you think, if you think about status when centering colonized identities and landscapes in your work? So I'm interpreting from that, like a group of people that hasn't been given status, has been denied status. Are you thinking explicitly about imbuing those people with status? Maybe you aren't. Maybe it's naturally happening without you thinking about it. But is that something that you've ever thought about?
It's something that I think about, but not in the way that the question has been phrased. And I think about it in the sense of, for instance, now there's a collection that I'm busy working with, and it's more about, having the kings that represent each indigenous culture. And I do that because I feel like anyone who buys into those pieces would be elevating the status of who their people are. So in a way, I do, address that, but I haven't thought about it as deeply as the question was posed. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say these are heavy hitter questions. So it's okay, you haven't thought about it. And Elliot said, I think it's interesting to think about different definitions of place within the context of colonialism. Your definition very much includes the people and cultural practices associated with the landscape, and not only the land, but how they're all connected. Thank you for your presentation. And Christina said people are coming in late with their questions here. There looked like there was a visual correlation between shape repeats, not only in beading patterns and linking jewelry parts in your work, but also in the movement patterns of the dancers in the celebration dance shown at the end of the presentation, especially when they link arms to move as one. Is that a coded visual language? Is there a coded visual language about multiples in Zulu culture? Good question.
It's mostly in the craft work, so like the basketry, you'll find it there. You'll find it obviously in the beadwork, and I'd say, even though it's not visual, but we are very oral people, so a lot of the rhythm that goes, like at the beginning of my lecture, I said my clan names, so there's a specific code and like rhythm that comes with how people will say their clan names and what it supposedly invokes when you do that. So yeah, I hope I answered that correctly. But yeah, there is other parts that have that.
Is there a significant role for performance in your work?
Yes, there is. It's significant because it becomes like a ritual of, not only have I now made these pieces, not only have I researched and gained a better understanding of the history of that particular culture, but also just wearing it, it's putting a body that basically says, even though some bodies were forgotten, I'm now kind of like awakening those bodies again, and in that giving life in a way to the pieces, to the people. Yeah, so there's a role in performance.
Well, and even I was thinking even in the photography. Well, thank you so much, Khanya. I know there might be some more questions, but we'll have a little bit of time at the end for everyone.
Okay.
So good job.
Thank you.